Hey everyone, Erin from the Impatient Gardener, and today I'm working on a project entirely inspired by something I saw on a television show. I thought I had seen pretty much every episode there was to see of Gardener's World from the last, say, 15 or 20 years, but somehow I had missed a Christmas episode.
Hello, welcome to a Christmas Gardener's World,
Which I was able to watch on a streaming service called Inside Outside House and Garden, which is actually the sponsor of this video. So on that episode, Rachel Tatame, who we all know and love if you watch Gardener's World, made this really cool, beautiful textural wreath from all foraged materials. And I thought I could give that a try. And so I thought I'd show you how I'm working through that, in addition to just mentioning a couple other things that I found on Inside Outside that I just kind of got a little bit of inspiration from. And it's nice to catch up on things because now we're back inside a little bit more. I can catch up on some of these other shows, and there's been some really neat ones that I've come across. All right, so let's start with this wreath. So Rachel makes this wreath, and they started with a kind of more 3D wreath form. This is the wreath form I had, so this is what we're going to go with. So my wreath is going to be, I would think, particularly skinny. So I'm going to start with moss, just like Rachel did. This is moss I dug up. Now, I had to sort of soak it to get it pliable enough to work around this wreath form. Okay, so it definitely would have been easier for me to just go buy some moss somewhere, and it probably would have been a better end result, but I wanted to stay authentic to what I had been inspired to do by this Gardener's World episode, but also from another show that I saw, which is called Kevin MacLeod's Man-Made Home. And the whole premise of this show is that this guy and his friends build this little cabin completely from scratch. And when I say from scratch, I mean they made their own windows. They rolled their own windows. And then he put this thick glass all together into what turned out to be this really cool window in this little cabin. The other thing they did is they made floors out of milk and some sort of like homemade, really kind of disgusting resin. So of course he goes to a farm and he milks a cow and he gets a bunch of milk for this. I mean, it's really over the top stuff, but it was really fun to watch. So you can see that my wreath form is skinny and a little fuzzy and possibly a little muddy, but we're gonna roll with it anyway. I mean, you can see that Rachel's wreath form was already 3D, and theirs looks much nicer and neater, but that's okay. We're gonna roll with what we have, right? Next, I have some willow cuttings from this is from our grafted willow that we have right off the deck, and it always gets a little rangy, but I thought some of those might be nice laid on there. Especially since this is such a skinny little frame here, I thought it might be nice to add in a few things to bulk this up a little bit. So Rachel just used some other kind of sticks in her wreath, which is great, but I think this willow is going to look great on here. Next, I thought we could use a little bit of lamb's ear, which still looks good. Except, sometimes you get some bottom leaves that look kind of nasty, but there's usually always a few leaves on it that look good. So speaking of gardens, another show that I watched is a show featuring Penelope Keith, who I know from these British travel shows where she's, gallivanting across the English countryside, discovering these adorable little towns. But in this show, she is helping restore a manor that is, I guess, owned by the National Trust. So the whole process of restoring this manor is full of red tape and everything. But one thing they seem to have sort of free range on is the most amazing walled garden. Now, I've got walled garden envy all the time. And so they actually teamed up with a local college to grow all these plants for them. And then they get into this walled garden, which is really kind of in a state of disrepair at this point, and they basically level it. There's not much to save there, and they bring in a whole bunch of volunteers, and they dig out the whole thing. And they get all these volunteers to create new bed lines and new paths. And of course, a walled garden is everybody's dream, right? And it's just so much fun to see this all come together. I'm just really glad that I didn't have to do all that work. So I also collected some of these great red rover heucherella leaves.
I feel like we need some colour.
This is Pycnanthemum unicum seed heads, which I think are really cool. I've got a little bit of little blue stem grass here, which we'll see if we work that in or not. I also grabbed a few of the seed heads from the polished brass eupatorium. And then I also grabbed some of the sumac, staghorn sumac, leftover that Sunflower Steve had brought me for my fall display, which I'm about to take apart to put in a winter display, so I thought we could reuse that to add some color in there. So that's what else we have. We have to see what else we like. I'm actually gonna turn these heucherella leaves, actually heucherella, excuse me, backwards, because the back side of them has that more vibrant sort of burgundy color. So I'm really liking this addition of seed heads on there. Now Rachel brought that in on hers by, just walking along the road and coming across this giant clematis, but clematis have the coolest seed heads. So I thought it was kind of an interesting look to add into the wreath. Okay, so I love how this sumac is looking on here. I think it really pushes this to more of a holiday look. It's got that bright red color, and it does a lot of good for covering up my sort of terrible moss frame. Okay, here we go. Here's the finished product. Perhaps a little bit less elegant than Rachel's.
Yeah. That's not bad. That looks brilliant.
I think it was the wet moss that maybe started that off the wrong way. But listen, Rachel is a former ballet dancer, so she wins elegance every time. But I do think it's beautiful and festive with the red in there, and didn't cost me a penny, save for maybe a little bit of ribbon and a little bit of wire. Everything else was from right here. So how fun was that? So you never know where inspiration is going to come from, and in this case it came from a television show that I can't believe I had never seen before, because I sort of pride myself on having seen basically every episode of Gardener's World. In any case, it was a really fun project to do, and I always love an opportunity to find a new way to enjoy the garden, especially at this time of year. So you can catch that episode, as well as these other episodes I've talked about, and a whole bunch of other British television shows on Inside Outside House and Garden, available wherever you get your streaming services from, through Roku, Apple TV, etc. Check the description for more information on how to get that, a special offer, and just how to access some of these shows. All right, I hope you're having a great day in your garden. See you soon. Thanks.